All right, so yeah, first of all, I want to thank Professor Baltimore for inviting me to speak to you guys. Yeah, so my name is Tyler Day. I'm 24 years old, and I co-founded a digital agency called Optimize to Convert with my brother Peter, and I'm Charleston local here. I went to college in Charleston, and yeah. So what does my company do? So we generate leads for other companies using social media. So like Professor Baltimore was saying, we basically put up our own money in advertising and get paid to generate leads for a company like Lyft, or we do a lot of stuff for people looking to purchase homes or get a car. So in a general sense, that's sort of what we do, but we run ads pretty much in every state in the United States, so we're not focused like only in Charleston or only in a local area. And we actually generate and sell thousands of leads on a daily basis for our clients. But the journey for me wasn't really that smooth. So I started to learn internet marketing in 2012 with my brother Peter. And that's a picture of us back then in 2012, probably at Christmas or something. But Peter he's 3 years older than me, and he was in college, and he was basically exploring ways that he could start an online business. And through one way or another, came across the opportunity of getting paid to run ads for other companies as a really viable way to make a bunch of money online. So
say that part again. Repeat that last part.
So my brother saw
making a bunch of money online. That's the part.
Yeah, making money online.
Okay, go. Make sure you heard that.
So my brother was kind of exploring this opportunity, and I was just graduating high school, going into college, and I decided to partner up with my brother on it, and we started off from there.
Before you go there, share the conversation we had about what your major was and how you were doing that with your own business and stuff.
Yeah, I'll get there.
Okay.
Pretty much I went to college in Charleston. So in 2012, I was basically starting my business out of a tiny dorm room that might have even been smaller than the one in the picture, honestly. And I just started to really spend a lot of time just drinking in all the information that I possibly could about just how to do everything. I mean, I just remember how overwhelming it was for me at first, because there was just so much information out there. It was like you would look something up on YouTube and you would watch some video and it would lead you in a different way and tell you to do something different, and then you would watch another video and it would say to do this and do that. And it's sort of like, I remember like the first year or couple years that I was starting my business, it was like I was running around like a chicken with its head cut off. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no direction really. So, I started out writing blog articles. I thought that would be a good way to, generate traffic for clients. And I was sitting in my dorm room writing 4 to 6 500-word blog articles a day. It was just brutal amount of work, just cranking this stuff out, and then realized that really wasn't getting any traction or going anywhere or producing any results. So I started to focus more on paid advertising, and specifically started running ads on the search engine Bing. So Google, with Google you can run ads and it's pay per click. So when you're advertising on Google, you're paying for every click that somebody does on your website. Bing works the same exact way, but it's significantly cheaper. So on Google, you might get a click for 50 cents to $1. On Bing, I was getting clicks for 10 to 20 cents. And I started to actually have some success doing that. So, freshman or sophomore year, I was, making basically a few $1,000s in profit, per month. But, the money that I was spending was just getting immediately reinvested back into the business, and I wasn't actually putting anything in my pocket. And I wasn't really getting anywhere either, because I would make a few a few $1,000s, and then I would go spend that to like try a different marketing strategy, like running like banner ads or something like that, and I would just like lose all the money like instantly. So it was really just spinning my wheels for that period of time. So yeah, so I struggled pretty hard for like a couple of years. So from 2012 to 2014, I basically made no money, and I actually lost thousands of dollars trying to do all this. I was working part-time jobs. I was, like a busboy at Husk downtown. I was just kind of hustling just to try to make money. Every dollar that I would make, I would just put into my savings account, and I would, try to use that to just test out a different marketing strategy or just try to do something with the business. But, I was determined, I just knew there was a lot of money being made, and I really was determined to just keep pushing forward, and, I just didn't really stop. So one thing that helped kind of lead and change things for me was at one point, all the information that I was getting was just coming from my own trial and error, which was a really difficult way to learn and a really expensive way to learn things, because I was putting up all my own money to do this stuff, and when I failed, it would like really hurt, lose money. And things started to really change for me when I started, instead of investing my, whatever, like a couple $100s here into just trial and error stuff, I started to invest in mentors who had already accomplished what I was setting out to go ahead and do. And, I saved up some more money, and I remember my brother and I, we invested like $3,000 each to basically have this guy coach us. And this was just one mentor early on. We've had a bunch of different mentors, but we had one specific mentor that really showed us like what he was doing, specifically running ads for the real estate industry. And he was making $300,000 a month in profit on Facebook and Bing and Google, basically just doing what I'm doing now, but he was doing it back then. And he introduced me to the opportunity of generating leads for people that are looking to purchase homes. He taught me who to sell the leads to. He taught me where to place the ads. He taught me what the ads looked like. He basically just opened the books and shared everything with me about what he was doing. And this was like a mentor very early on that was just like pivotal and changed like the entire course of my business. So in 2015, my brother and I, we started to see some really good results. We went from making no money to being profitable within maybe like 2 months of meeting this mentor, because we pretty much implemented exactly what he showed us, and we started seeing results. That wasn't the end of the road. I mean, it's not like just this one mentor was everything for us. We had to go seek out many more mentors to, actually continue to be successful. But in 2015, we actually started to really see some success with what we were doing, and the money started to come in like crazy. So we weren't making $300K a month profit like our mentor, but we were making 5 figures a month in profit. I was like a junior in college. So the first lesson is to stay committed to your course. So yeah, I mean, it was really hard for me to actually, I remember at a certain point I was so discouraged. I lost so much money that I just thought that maybe I was just not doing the right thing. And I actually considered just completely quitting and focusing more just on a traditional job route from there. And I think a lot of times people end up giving up right before they're about to have a breakthrough. And this is kind of what this image depicts here of this guy that is literally inches away from all the diamonds, and this guy's about to hit it, because he's hungry. But really it's just about staying consistent and not giving up and just showing up every day. And if you do that for years and years, eventually you'll probably figure it out. So there's going to be a lot of times that you feel like quitting, but you got to realize that it's through those times that you'll have a breakthrough. The second lesson is to seek out a mentor. So in order to go where you want to go, you need to learn from other people that have already achieved what you want to do. And I realize that everybody in here has different aspirations. So some people might want to start their own business in marketing, some people might want to do something completely different. But whatever it is you want to do, you want to go out and seek people that have done that already, and you want to try to learn from them. So mentors are the best way to almost like skip levels. Like if you're playing a video game and, you know, you're playing this game and level like, you know, 5 through 10 is whatever challenge, and you could play that video game and you could probably fail level 5 or 6 like a few times and then replay it and go through it, or you could just talk to somebody who's already played level 5 through 10 and you can ask them, hey, what did you do to get through this certain point, you know? So it's a way to think about it, like having a good mentor that can teach you things can just have you just completely skip levels altogether. There's a quote by Sir Isaac Newton that says, if I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. So this is really what you should achieve to do. I mean, you shouldn't achieve to go try to figure everything out yourself. You should go try to stand on the shoulder of a giant, and that'll help you see a little further. So the third lesson is to start young. So starting to learn whatever it is you want to do, whatever craft that you want to master, whatever skill that you want to develop, whatever business you want to start, starting it at a young age will give you a huge advantage over someone that waits until their late 20s or their 30s or 40s. The younger that you start, basically the better. And I found that college is really a good time to start to develop your skill just in your spare time. So for me, I mean, I was like pretty intensive. I was spending like 4 to 5 hours a day probably, learning things and trying to make things happen outside of being a full-time student. So, for me, I mean, I viewed it as like an opportunity. I mean, I realized that if I failed and I lost like all my money, that I would just like go back to my dorm room and just like figure it out the next day. The consequences were like low. When you're in your late 20s, your early 30s, and you might have a kid or you might have a mortgage or whatever, it's really difficult to take that level of risk then. And I wouldn't have done it at that point. So while you're young, specifically while you're in college, I mean, you don't need to go too crazy, but maybe like, if you got an extra like 30 minutes a day, just start doing stuff, So oftentimes it doesn't even matter what you do. I mean, as long as you just start, just take some level of action towards what you want to do and, go from there. And the fourth lesson is to invest in yourself. So in my early days, I mean, the money that I would make in business, I would reinvest it back into things like books, into courses, into live events. I didn't put this up here, but actually traveling to conferences and learning things in person. Really the only thing that you should be spending money on when you're young, especially in college, is yourself. So forget investing in Bitcoin, forget investing in stocks. Try to limit as much as you possibly can the money that you just spend on stuff like an iPhone or whatever. Like the money that you spend on yourself is going to have the highest return on investment than anything else that you would ever invest in. And this is true for anyone at any level. I mean, for someone who's just getting started, for someone who's already seen results, investing in yourself is going to be really the best possible thing because, at the end of the day, you know, your results and the amount of money that you're gonna make is gonna come down to your level of knowledge and your level of skill. So the more that you focus on building that, the more successful you'll be over time. So yeah, that's it. I think it's about 15 minutes. So let me know if you guys have any questions about anything. Yeah.
What was your major in college?
Yeah. So yeah, I forgot to talk about that. But
Yeah, I did mention that, but.
yeah.
So go ahead.
So I started out trying to be a business major. I knew I wanted to do business. You know, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur from a young age. Before college, it was a lawn mowing company that I was doing with my brother. But I started out, I wanted to be a business major, but I was trying to start this business at the same time. And you know, spending like 4 or 5 hours a day on top of being like a full-time student. I just wasn't, I ended up like failing like all these business classes. Like I literally like could not do both at the same time. Specifically, there was this one class, business calculus, that I needed to take in order to move forward, and I failed it 3 times. So yeah, I mean, it was literally like I took it in the fall, failed it. Took it again in the spring, failed it. Went to summer school, failed it. So I realized like I literally wasn't even able to like pass this business classes that were like rigidly structured that I needed to go through. And I ended up having to completely switch my major to communications because it was just a much easier major. There weren't any math classes. It was sort of like the path of least resistance for me. And I did okay in that major. You know, I think I graduated with like a 2.3 GPA, which is like pretty bad, but it just wasn't really my main focus, you know. Any other questions? Yeah.
So what are your plans like going ahead?
Yeah, so my plans now are just to grow the company more. So we've grown a whole ton in the past year. We're bringing on people, we're building a team.
Tyler, talk to them about, when you say grow, talk to them in terms of revenue. You know, you've grown from X to Y or Z.
Yeah, so I don't know, I mean, in 2015 when we first became profitable, and as far as, I like to think in terms of like profit.
Okay,
So like,
I mean, you don't have to, we don't want to get into your internal
Yeah.
workings, but.
yeah. I mean, my brother and I, when we first started like hitting results in 2015, we were maybe doing like $100,000 a month in revenue, and maybe about like 30,000 of that was profit. And my brother and I were maybe taking home like $15,000 each, which is like a pretty good amount of money. But yeah, I think we had $1 million month in revenue. It might have been in June or July, like 1 or 2 months ago. And we operated usually with like between like 20 to 30% profit margin. So there would have been like a few $100,000 in profit just in like 1 month that the business produced. And we run like a pretty small team. It's, you know, my brother and I, we have a full-time media buyer who runs ads on Facebook. We have a guy that is full-time moderating comments on Facebook, so like replying to people and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, it's, you know, as far as like full-time, it's probably like, you know, 4 or 5 full-time, and then we have a whole bunch of, you know, just like really part-time people that help out with like accounting and different stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you know of some good, you said you took courses, had books, paid for them, and so forth. Do you like them? What are like some of the names of those? Were there any online courses?
So specifically for like what I'm doing, like.
Or, yeah, marketing or whatever.
Yeah, so, I mean, the courses that I would have been buying like 3 or 4 years ago or longer ago are all like way outdated. You want to be buying information that's like current. Like you want to buy a course that like just came out like last month, you know, because information is constantly changing in this space, and what was working like 3 years ago isn't going to be working right now. But I mean, we're working on our own line of info products to teach people how to do internet marketing. But I mean, those aren't going to be released probably for another like 2 or 3 months. There's a company called iStack Training, iStack, STACK. They have a few different products on learning how to do Facebook ads, how to do affiliate marketing, e-commerce. Yeah, they're probably the best resource right now.
And it's iStack Training, is it?
iStackTraining.com, I believe it is. Yeah, but yep.
So you talked about going to conferences when you were even younger than you are now. How do you get past that stigma of what people expect a business person to be?
I don't know. I mean, the conferences that I go to are like pretty like laid back. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's not, when you go to conferences, it's not like, you know, people in like suit and tie in like the internet marketing space. It's like, you know, dudes with like t-shirts and ponytails that like sit behind computers all day. You know what I mean? It's, you know, and there's not much stigma because you can relate to everybody. It's like everybody there is in the same boat. It's like they're just there, they do the same thing as you, they're trying to just start their business. There's going to be people there that are obviously doing things on like an extremely high level, and there's going to be people there that are not doing anything at all. And you just got to be real with where you're at, and you know, I didn't find there's too much stigma, you know.
How do you manage like your competition?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, competition is always an issue. Like, whenever there's money being made, people are going to want to steal your business. You know, they're going to want to do what you're doing. And, you know, I try to not get into niches that are, like, overly competitive. So, you know, I try to look at like sub niches. So I don't know. So for example, the niche of like people looking to get a home, it's like so broad, right? And there's companies that spend so much money for that. But you know, I was focusing specifically on a niche of people with you know, lower credit to get a home, and the whole angle was focused around that. So I went from, you know, a super broad niche to something a little bit more specific, and there was less competition there.
You find out so much people.
Yeah, so I mean, you don't really know how much competition there is until like you just get in this space, and then you realize like, oh, there's like a ton of other people doing this. But I try to avoid things that like what I see as like way overly competitive, just because like I don't know. If I already know it's so competitive, I'll just like avoid getting into it and try to focus on something that's a little bit more unique or specific. Yeah. Any other questions?
Can you, Tyler, talk a little bit more about mentors, how you found your mentor, how do you evaluate, I mean, when you're looking at mentors, how do you know this guy is, you know, really trying to help you out, or is he just trying to sell?
Yeah.
Do you have people who are volunteering their mentoring abilities, or are you actually paying these people to talk to you?
Yeah, so some mentors that I've had have just been peers, just other people in the space that we just like exchange information for free and learn from each other. Other mentors I've paid money to get access to. So I mentioned that first mentor. So how I found him was I heard through someone else in the internet marketing space that they knew of this guy. They were like, yeah, I know. They were like, yeah, they lived in Arizona, and this guy lived in Arizona too. And they're like, yeah, I met this guy in my town who is doing this stuff in real estate. He's making like an obscene amount of money, and you know, whatever. And I heard about this guy. I got his name, and I looked him up on Facebook. And I cold messaged him on Facebook and introduced myself and asked him if he could, you know, if I could pay him for some coaching. And like somehow, some way, he agreed to it. And Yeah, I mean, we paid him like a really small amount of money. It was probably like $6,000 total, but he opened the books for us for what, you know, for him was like a, you know, a multi-million-dollar operation. So, I don't know, you'll just be surprised, like sometimes people just want to help people out. I mean, this guy just like had a really, you know, strong sense of like, I just want to help people. And he was really open with sharing his information, maybe to his, you know, we probably became his biggest competitor, if not like crushed him in the competition over time. But I don't know if he's going to be that open to sharing information after that. But at the time, he had like just became successful. So like he had, you know, literally been making no money, and then like within, you know, a 6 or 12 month period of time, went to getting like an extremely, you know, profitable business. So he was like brand new, and I would say that we were maybe like the first or second people that even like approached him and asked him for training, and it just kind of worked out. He was just like, yeah, sure. But a lot of people are going to be much more guarded, and a lot of people are not going to have your best interests in mind, and they're going to want to just take your money and not actually tell you what they're actually doing. So you just want to use your discernment, and you want to come into if you're paying for like consulting like that, you want to come into it with a very clear expectation about what you're actually getting for what you're paying. So for us, it was pretty clear, like we're gonna pay you and you're gonna show us specifically what you're doing for this real estate stuff. And you know, there was no questions of like what he was gonna deliver. It was just either he was gonna deliver what we wanted to learn from him or he wasn't. So some people, it's like you might pay them for coaching and they might just like give you a whole bunch of BS and it might not be helpful. So yeah, I mean, you just want to use your own discernment basically and try to find someone that is going to have your best interests in mind, even though that can be hard.
2 more questions, and then I'm gonna see if anybody wants to talk to you. First of all, talk to you about your space and paid advertising. Where do you think that is? Where it's going? You know, because there's always an argument about should I grow my business organically,
Yeah.
which is basically trying to, you know, hustle your way up, use all the, you know, analyticals that are available for you to try to grow your space.
Mhm.
And then there's the paid. And so, talk to you about your opinion on where paid is versus organic.
Yeah, so I started out doing organic traffic just with the blog articles and stuff.
Before you go there, everybody understands what organic, does everybody know what organic means? Let me just make sure we've got that. Yeah. Organic means you're just not spending any money. You're trying to get your name out, you're trying to get the word out, and you're trying to get the word out using any available source, whether it's Instagram, whether it's your website, whether it's SEO, any way you can get the message out without spending a dime. And then there's paid advertising. So organic means you're hustling and you ain't got no money. That's basically what it means. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was how I started. So when I started out, the first strategy that I did was SEO. I was writing articles for like 5 or 6 hours a day. And,
Explain SEO, they may not know what that means.
Okay, so SEO means when you type something in on Google, search engine optimization is a process that Google uses to show you more relevant content. So if you typed in dog training on Google, Google would search the entire web and read the content on all these pages and show you information that they consider to be relevant to what you typed in. So when you're doing SEO, you're basically targeting a specific keyword and writing your whole article based around that keyword. So if the keyword was dog training, you would write an article and you would mention dog training like 10 or 20 times in the whole article. And hopefully, Google would pick up that article. And when people typed in dog training, ideally your article would show up on that first page. So, you know, there's a whole lot of competition in the SEO space because it's free and anybody can do it. When I first started, I don't know, I mean, it just didn't work for me. Like I did it for probably a year. I probably wrote 350 articles targeting different keywords. just trying to gain traction on something and just like failed miserably. So yeah, I mean, one lesson that I learned about free advertising is that it's not free because you're investing all of your time into it, and your time is really valuable. And you know, like they say, time is money. So if you're spending like 5 or 6 hours a day on free advertising, is it really free then? Because you're spending all your time on it. So I realized that paid advertising, you have a much higher, you have more leverage on paid advertising than you do with free advertising, because if something works for you with paid advertising, in order to get more results, you don't have to work, spend more time per se. You just need to increase your marketing budget on that ad, and it gives you a much bigger, leverage. And if you're able to get something profitable with paid advertising, you'll make a lot more money.
And the last point I want you to talk on is on relationships and with your peers, your competitors, and your clients, and how important relationships are.
So relationships have been probably the most important thing in our business. So I mentioned that we go to conferences. We actually travel a whole ton to conferences, and this is where we pick up most of our clients, is by building relationships in person at live events, meeting people in person. And the connections that we get from every conference, it's like literally like 100-fold of like whatever we paid to fly there or like pay for the conference every single time. I've never attended a conference that hasn't at least like 50x like what I spend to get there. Because when you go to these places, like everybody there, when you go to, let's say I'm in internet marketing, so I go to conferences where people own products or looking for people to advertise for them, or maybe they're in the advertising space. So when I go to conferences, every single person there, it could be a potential client. So it's just a matter of talking to enough people and building enough relationships and enough connections to where you land a really sweet deal that ends up making you a bunch of money. So, I mean, this is true for whatever space you're in. You need to get in the proximity of the people that have your money, and you need to build relationships in person. And maybe if you're lucky enough and you can prove to them that you can provide them enough value, that some of that money will flow into your pocket.
Has anyone ever said anything to you, because when you talk about the amount of dollars that you're working with, they might look at you and say, do I really want to give this young guy that kind of money, or has that ever been an issue?
Yeah, so everything that we work with right now is on a performance basis, which means that we spend our own money on advertising to generate them results. So they're not giving us money. So, for example, if I'm, running an ad for people to get a home, they might pay $10 for a name, email, phone number. I could go spend $7 on Facebook, get somebody to fill that out, and then sell that to them for $10, and pocket the difference basically.
Does everybody understand that? So basically, what happens is, yes, Tyler might be young, or he might be whatever, but that's irrelevant, because what he's doing, or what his business is doing, is they're actually spending their money. They know that the client wants to purchase this for $10. So his goal is to do what? Try to get that lead for them as cheap as possible. And it's only like $3 a lead. But if you extrapolate that number, that $3 times 100 leads, times 1,000 leads, times 10,000 leads, that's how he makes his money. So youth may have an issue, or it may not, but more importantly, it doesn't have an issue because he's spending his own cash. But what he's done is he's able to identify what the customer is willing to pay, and his job is to try to meet that number as cheap as possible from his perspective. Okay, correct?
Yeah, and when you're first getting started out, it doesn't matter how much money you have. So like I was running ads at like a $25 a day budget when I was first getting started. Once I found something that was really working, I went and like applied for every credit card I possibly could, and just, I mean, maybe that's a little bit of a risky strategy, but I noticed that for every dollar that I was spending, $1.30 was coming out. So for me to just do things at a $25 a day level didn't make sense anymore. So both my brother and I opened up, you know, businesses, like got lines of credit for each individual business. Within a couple months, we had like $40,000 a month of credit limit, and we just like immediately went and spent that $40,000 on ads, made like, I don't know, like 50 or whatever, yeah, maybe like 50,000 back. Just say as soon as we got that money back in, like a few days later, just go spend that again, you know, and like you start multiplying capital like pretty quickly when you're profitable.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions for Tyler? Anybody? Let's give him a round of applause. So, I called security to let them know that your Porsche is going to be okay. Okay. So you don't have to worry about that. So, and I made sure that I parked my car a lot farther than the state's car. Okay, just to make sure. But we've got about 10 minutes, so I've got some stuff I have to do. Does anybody want to have a conversation with Tyler privately? Anybody want to? Oh, let me, before we do that. Tyler and I talked about internships. We all talked about how the internship is growing. One of the things that Tyler is doing is that his business is going to grow. He wants his business to grow. And as his business grows, he's going to need more, he's going to need individuals. So obviously, if this guy's making, you know, a couple $100,000 a month, just extrapolate what kind of numbers he's going to be doing in 2-3 years. All right. So what we want to do is, you know, we had talked to, or I talked to him about internship, because his business is growing so fast and so it is so labor intensive. I remember when we talked about, he's got a bench of what, 4 people?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, at this point, you know, there's interest for him in bringing in an intern, but right now he's on the grind. He's trying to grow his business as quickly as possible. But once he does grow, you're going to have what? Bodies.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to stay in contact with him. I urge some of you who may be interested in that type of opportunity to try to either create a relationship with him, keep in touch with him if you want, and if nothing else, because he's come to this class, I'm sure that, you know, he will share whatever information he can with you, like the first mentors did, for a certain dollar amount. You know what I'm saying? All right, so we've got about 10 minutes. Does anybody want to have a conversation with this guy before he leaves? Anybody want to step up? Okay. You want to turn? You want to?
Yeah.
You guys walk over there?